Blog Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to Around the Nest as we talk our way around the Toronto Blue Jays minor league organization. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler with the Lansing Lugnuts. Over the course of this show, we'll see what's going on with the Lugnuts, single-A affiliates of the Blue Jays. We'll work our way on up with the AA New Hampshire Fisher Cats and the AAA Buffalo Bisons. But we begin this week with a team that finally lost its double-digit game this year. It took long enough. The powerhouse Dunedin Blue Jays in the Class A Advanced Florida State League, and their broadcaster is the voice of the people, Tyler Murray. Tyler, how are you?
Jesse, it is good to be back. That's all I can say. Al Hernandez has done a wonderful job filling in the last couple of weeks, but, I missed you. I figured I might as well get back in the game again.
Well, I'm glad to have you. All right, so your Blue Jays finally lose their 10th game of the year, and yet looks like things are proceeding right along. Let's begin with your starter tonight, Daniel Norris, and his 0.81 ERA. I just had a scout stop by Lansing after seeing the DJs, and he said Norris from last year to this year is an entirely different pitcher. How is he looking to you in your first impressions?
It really has been impressive, Jesse. I can't speak to how much he's changed from last year because he was with you guys most of the time, but obviously the numbers speak for themselves. The fastball has been in the mid-90s consistently, which is tremendous. The curveball has always been there. But recently what we've noticed is that he's been going with the changeup a lot more than usual, and that pitch has certainly come a long way. It's in the mid to high 80s, and obviously that's a big drop-off from mid-90s. That's working very well for him. And not only is he getting swings and misses on it, he's throwing it for strikes now at the bottom edge of the strike zone. So it really has kept hitters off balance. And it's funny, he's allowed just those 3 runs this season, and they've all come against the Clearwater Threshers, who are a team with 8 wins right now overall this season. So they've struggled a lot. But I think the most impressive thing about Norris is how he's now made 7 starts, 2 of them against the Tampa Yankees, 2 of them against the Brevard County Manatees, that's the Brewers affiliate, and 3 against the Clearwater Threshers. So he's seen teams multiple times. Opposing hitters are getting a second look at him, and he's still being dominant. And it really is impressive how consistent he's been. You can tell the confidence is growing, and there's just not much more you can say positively about Daniel Norris. He is the real deal, and wouldn't be surprised to see him moving on up quite soon, but you never know.
We're joined by Tyler Murray, voice of the Dunedin Blue Jays. You can find him on Twitter, LT_Murray, like Lieutenant Murray. Tyler, let's talk about your catchers. A comment from Bluebird Banters. We've partnered up with SB Nation this year, questioning about the Dunedin tandem of Derek Chung and Mike Reeves and how they're performing behind the plate. Offensively, we can see their stats. Tell us what you've seen from both of them, beginning with Derek Chung.
I really do think this has to be the best catching tandem in the Florida State League. On any other team, Mike Reeves would be the everyday starter. But, yes, let's indeed start with Derek Chung. He just continues to produce from behind home plate and at the plate, and it's so strange to think that he was drafted to play infield, and he didn't do terribly with the Vancouver Canadians his first year, but clearly he belongs behind home plate. Now, he spent a couple of his college years at Sacramento State playing catcher, so he knows what he's doing out there. Last 10 games, he's hitting .371, and he's always going to be one of the best guys behind home plate in terms of throwing out runners. He's top 4 in the FSL right now in that department, and he was second in the league last year in throwing out would-be base stealers. Talking to closer Eric Sekula recently, he said that Chung is one of the best guys who calls games that he's ever thrown to, and that's something that Chung has developed a lot over the last month or so, or season or so, and he's definitely developed in terms of becoming more of a big league style catcher in terms of relying on a pitcher's fastball and then using an occasional breaking ball. In college, sometimes, at least what we've heard, is you tend to go with a lot of breaking balls, keeping hitters off balance who might not be able to hit the slow stuff. But here at this level, a lot of guys know how to do it, so you have to adjust your game plan a little bit, and Chung has definitely been there in that regard. A line drive singles hitter, above average speed, definitely an underrated athlete. Chung has been really tremendous this year, and his bedside manner when he goes out to the pitcher's mound to talk things over, we're told he's very laid back. He talks about things other than baseball, and it helps keep the pitchers loose. And obviously the way this team is throwing this year, he's been a big part of their success. And Mike Reeves,
you put that.
Yeah, and Mike Reeves, in his limited appearances, he's played in 11 games this year. He really has produced when needed. You can see the gap power, the doubles potential. And it's really tough to get a read on him because, as we've said, he's been on and off, hasn't gotten back-to-back starts all season. But again, if Derek Chung wasn't the go-to guy on this team, Mike Reeves would probably be in there every day. But he really has come through in clutch situations. With runners in scoring position, he's hitting 375. With runners in scoring position and 2 outs, he's hitting 500. So he really is a gamer. He's a great athlete behind home plate as well. And it always is a surprise when runners steal on him. It's unfortunate for him. The numbers are definitely inflated to the negative side because almost maybe half the time when runners go from first to second to try to steal on Mike Reeves, it's on a breaking ball in the dirt. So they'll get steals because they were going originally against Mike Reeves. But to me, whenever he gets a good throw, whenever he gets a good pitch where he can stand up out of his crouch and just throw clean to second base, it's almost impossible to run on this guy. So he really is a great guy to have as your second-string catcher, and I'm sure eventually he'll move into that number one role in Dunedin.
Well, speaking about a catcher like Mike Reeves, who is not playing every day, this has been a topic of conversation for us here in Lansing. With catchers in general, boy, if you've got a good one, you want to keep on putting him in the starting lineup, and yet over the course of a long season, especially if the weather is hot, things are getting exhausting, it is really easy to burn out a catcher in a hurry. And so maybe this is nice in keeping him fresh for when/if Derek Chung gets the call up to New Hampshire. It's the first year not only for Mike Reeves with Dunedin, but it's his first year at the full season level. He's kept right over Lansing. So good signs there from what's going on behind the plate for the DJs.
It really is a luxury, Jesse, to have a guy like Mike Reeves waiting in the wings, and he's definitely a fan favorite from Peterborough, Ontario. He did a great job with our Wing Night commercial a couple of weeks ago, so the fans love when Reeves gets to play, and I think you're right. It definitely must come into the minds of the Blue Jays organization that they want to make sure he stays fresh in his first 140-game season above the short season A level, and we're definitely looking forward to seeing when he gets consistent playing time. It really goes without saying, for all of these guys, once they can get to play in there, 5-6 days a week, that's when we really see what they can do, and more often than not, it's impressive stuff.
We are already seeing what Dalton Pompeii can do. Pompeii has been grabbing the headlines ever since the very start of the year. He's been rising up, whether it's prospect hot lists or what have you, with everything that he has provided. And the interesting question becomes among the fans of a minor league team, it travels from, boy, how good is he, to, like, how long can we keep him? Tell me about Dalton Pompeii from what you've seen from him most recently.
Oh, there's just so much to get to about Pompeii. And the only reason I think he hasn't already been considered or even already moved up to the next level is because this is his first season in the Florida State League. Obviously, the organization wants to see just how long he can keep it up. But I might compare his performance, different positions, different players. But, Andy Burns last year just tore the cover off the ball all year long, and it seemed obvious he was destined for Double-A. But they wanted to give him a full first half just to make sure he could keep it up, and obviously he could. But there's almost nothing we've seen that Dalton Pompeii can't do. He leads the league with 17 steals. He's been caught just one time, and that was even on a close play. 338 batting average, and recently we're seeing the power numbers as well. He has 3 home runs this year, and throughout the Blue Jays' offensive success this year, they're not necessarily a home run hitting team. Dwight Smith Jr. and Emilio Guerrero are tied with 4 home runs apiece to lead the team, and Pompeii has 3. The good news, I think, maybe even the best news, is that he's showing power from the right side. Average-wise, he's hitting 361, batting left-handed, but batting right-handed, he got off to a slow start, but then hit a couple of deep flies, and it's been pretty impressive to see how he's grown more and more consistent from both sides of the plate. And then you talk about the defense. It seems like every game we watch him in center field, there's another ball hit out to the alley that we think, no way he's getting to this one. But he ends up making it a routine play. And when he makes spectacular diving catches and tumbling plays and up against the wall catches, he's almost too casual with it that the field umpire is thinking, did he catch that? Am I about to signal out, or where did that ball go? And it always winds up in Dalton Pompeii's glove. And that really is how good he is. He's just so casual out there. It seems too easy for him sometimes, but he's done a wonderful job in center field this year.
Run by Tyler Murray with the Dunedin Blue Jays. The fun thing in speaking with Tyler is we generally run out of time real quick because there's so much that we can talk about with a guy here, a guy there. Our question of the week for you, Tyler, just because Trey Wilson and I see in Lansing, an umpire called ball 4 while making the signal for strike 3. which got us thinking of all the unusual things that can happen over the course of a season. What is the most unusual moment you can recall involving an umpire?
Let's see. Well, last year the Blue Jays had a pretty bizarre walk-off win. Let's see if I can set it up for you. Runners on the corners, 2 away, Marcus Connect batting. If the runner from third scores, the Blue Jays win. Chopper to shortstop. They tried to get the 6'4" fielder strike to second base, couldn't get it there. Threw back to first, couldn't get it there. Connect beat the throw, so the run scored from third, and the Blue Jays won. But the whole Tampa Yankees infield thought they recorded it out at second or at first. No umpire ever signaled anything. They didn't signal out. They didn't signal safe. They didn't signal game over. So for maybe what felt like an hour, but was probably only like 2 minutes, the umpires stared at each other, and the Blue Jays awkwardly walked off the field and then forced into celebration just to make it look like they'd won. And the umpires finally acknowledged that, okay, I guess we're going to give this game to the Blue Jays. And a walk-off fielder's choice. It's pretty interesting. But that's all I got for you right there, Jesse. That's all I can think of.
That's crazy. That's absurd. Let me bring in Trey Wilson, who broadcasts with me with the Lansing Lugnuts. Trey, before this year, what were some of the more unusual moments you can remember involving umpires?
Most of them came from college. Some strange overturned calls, a lot of good arguments with head coaches and managers and the umpires. But really the strike 3, ball 4 call the other night was probably the strangest one that I've seen to this point. That was pretty weird.
Trey, let me turn back to Tyler. Tyler, do you have any questions? Do you have any curiosities with what's going on with the Lansing Lugnuts for Trey?
Curiosity is all I have about the Lansing Lugnuts, especially Tom Robson. He's pretty highly touted pitching prospect for the Blue Jays, and I know he's starting tonight. At least that's what it looks like is going to happen. What are your early impressions on Robson so far? Fans might look at a 4.76 ERA and think maybe a slow start, but what have you guys seen from him so far?
Bad start. He was really not sharp his first 2 times out. He's tightened it up quite a bit the last 3 starts that he's had, maybe 4 starts that he's had. Around the strike zone more, first pitch strikes, not walking as many guys, but he's still not quite there. He's not quite back to the guy that he was last year with Bluefield and Vancouver, and I don't think that's anything that has to do with the competition level, and Jesse and I have harped on this a bit. He's just not throwing as many strikes. He was a guy who a year ago would put the ball wherever he wanted to, especially with the fastball. That hasn't been the case this year. They're getting closer to getting back to that, but it's been a slow process for him. It was a slow start, and it's good to see him picking it back up now.
Question about another pitcher, Kendall Graveman. We've now seen him make 3 starts, and he's gotten better and better every time. And I wonder, maybe Jesse can answer this, because you saw him a bit last year. What do you guys think his ceiling could be going forward? He really has been able to use that sinking fastball well to get out of trouble, and as I said, the improvement is apparent every time he goes out there. So what are you guys' impressions of Kendall Graveman so far? We know he's a great guy, and I'm sure it wasn't a surprise when he got called up, but how far do you guys think he could go?
Trey, let me just add, from the start of last year, when Kendall Graveman joined the Lugnuts after the Blue Jays drafted him, we've talked about this. He was tired, coming in off a long college baseball schedule and the rigors of attending classes and everything else going on in your life, especially for a team that makes it all the way to the College World Series Championship Series against UCLA. He has pitched a ton, and then he joins the Lugnuts. Well, he comes back to them this year. His velocity jumps. He's working 92, 93. Not only the same, but upon joining the professional ranks, he's been working hard upon improving his breaking ball. So the sinker and his location of his sinker has been great. The addition of the slider has really been solid, and the changeup is coming along. I like staying away from ceilings because I'm not exactly a scout, but I heard somebody say there's no reason he couldn't be a back-of-the-rotation starter, number 4, number 5, eat up innings, doing good things for a team because he throws strikes, he mixes things up, and now he's starting to find those strikeout pitches too. Trey, what have you seen?
I think that's exactly right. I mean, he's polished. He was too polished for this level this year, I think, and it showed on the field. He was dominating guys. And I've said it a lot with not just Graveman, but a lot of other guys that you see come out of college off of especially a deep playoff run. We saw the same thing with Scott Silverstein last year where he got knocked around a bit, and he's reigned that back in some this year with Silverstein coming out of UVA and then making a run into the super regionals. College guys, that first pro year, if they start the same year that they finish their collegiate career, they're tired. It's tiring. They've already pitched this many innings, and it's tough to get out there and keep rolling through into a whole nother season. So Graveman came out fresh this year, and it was apparent really from the start, from his first start that he made, that he was above this level. And he's got a lot of downward movement on his fastball, and he gets a ton of ground balls. I mean, we can't talk about enough how many ground balls that he gets, and the strikeout rates were climbing right before he got moved up. And I think that he's a guy who could easily go out there and, as Jesse said, eat up some innings, get some strikeouts, and be a solid starter for any team that you put him on.
Following along with you. Sorry, go ahead, Jesse.
A quick addition. There's something that Kevin Pillar did when he joined the Lugnuts and every single team on up, and that was for those players who did not have a routine leading up to a game. Pillar worked hard, and they had the kind of personality that it rubbed off very positively. Kendall Graveman has been the hardest-working Lugnut pitcher, and you could even say one of the hardest-working players leading up to his promotion. And because of that, and because of the success that he had, he really was a positive influence among his teammates. And the coaching staff could look to him to model what a player had to do in order to get good results. And that sort of player cannot be understated. The kind of guy who's great in the clubhouse, who works really hard, and then when things go right, teammates look at it and say, I think I need to work harder as well.
Good stuff. One more question for you guys, maybe two more if we have time. When I'm following along this season, look at the box scores. Oh, look, Mitch Nay got another hit. Look, Matt Dean got another hit. I almost feel like I'm doing a poor job of generalizing those two guys and lumping them in together. Matt Dean and Mitch Nay. See, I almost did it with their names. What's the biggest difference you think between those two prospects and corner infielders for the Lansing Lugnuts, so I can maybe appreciate them more individually instead of just lumping them together as two big contributors?
Trey?
I think the biggest thing is consistency. Mitch Day is the most consistent guy that I have seen in a long time. Hits all the time. He puts together on-base streaks and hitting streaks to just keep on running. It's rare that you see him have more than one strikeout in a game. It's rare that you see him have a game where he doesn't get at least a single. He's not going to go out there and give you a lot of 3-for-4 nights, but he's going to be a 1-for-4, 2-for-4 guy every night. He might strike out once, and he might walk once. That's Mitch Nay every single game. Matt Dean is going to go through stretches where he goes 3-for-4, and then he's going to go through stretches where he goes 0-for-4 with 3 punch-outs. He's a streaky hitter. He's very streaky, and we saw it last year where he started out the season so cold and then bounced back and finished the second half of the short season down in Bluefield on a tear, hit almost 400 for the last part of the year. And that was a little bit more, those streaks were a little bit longer. But this year we've even seen times where he's been cold, he's been hot, back and forth. Mitch is going to be a 300 hitter all the way through. He's going to start out the year hitting 300. He's going to finish the year hitting 300. He's going to work in some home runs and RBIs here and there and just give you the same thing every single day.
Last one I have for you guys, Jason Leblebijan. It sounded like he had a really good spring training camp, and I know he's a fan favorite. What has he been able to do so far for the Lugnuts? Maybe cooled off a bit lately, but the limited time we got to watch him last year, he was great, and I know you guys are big fans of him too.
Jesse, go ahead.
With Jason Leblebijan, he's come back in, he's refocused himself, and what he's doing more than anybody else, Tyler, I can honestly say quality. Every single night, wherever they put him, although right now he's playing a pretty regular second base, Leblebijan is making highlight reel plays. We're talking about leaping stabs of line drives where he seriously climbs the ladder and the Andrew Wiggins kind of leap. We're talking about diving stabs up the middle, lunging to his left or to his right, showcasing a strong arm, much stronger than you'd think. Wherever the Lugnuts have put him, his defense has been strong. And meanwhile, at the plate, he can go to the opposite way. He's hit a couple of home runs, so he's flashing some power. And he's got a good presence wherever he is, giving good professional at-bats. And it's very good to have a guy like this in the midst of a team that's very young and, yes, prospect-laden. But let's say Dawel Lugo comes up and Lugo does not lace a killer line drive somewhere, let's say he has a really tough at-bat, goes down immediately on a foul pop, Lev Lebejian is coming up next, and it's going to get tougher on the pitcher now. So the Lugnuts have that good balance going of really high-ceiling talent combined with a player like Lev Lebejian who is going to make the pitcher work, and in the field, he's going to make a pitcher's stats look a heck of a lot better.
Good stuff, guys. That's all I got for you this week. I guess my time's up. 5:20. It's time for the Double A, guys, right?
Well, exactly. So Tyler Murray with the Dunedin Blue Jays, thank you very much.
You got it, guys. Talk to you soon.
All right. He's the voice of the people, Tyler Murray. And Trey Wilson with the Lansing Lugnuts, thank you for joining us to talk about the Midwest League.
Thanks, Jesse. See you.
All right, let's go right on up the ladder. As we said, right on up to Bob Lipman and the New Hampshire Fisher Cats and talk some Double-A action. Bob, how does this find you?
Doing fine, Jesse, and hope everybody's doing well, and hope you have a great weekend of baseball.
That's what we're all rooting for. Although, look, let's be honest, here in Lansing and in West Michigan and in Kentucky, we had temperatures go from 90 now back down into the 40s. So how's the weather treating you?
It's not a real nice day today. We have had some precipitation in the area, so keeping our fingers crossed that we'll get off and going with the Mets here in just about an hour or so.
On the bright side, you've got Atlas fireworks tonight, more fireworks tomorrow. I'm seeing the reading challenge. This is a big weekend at Northeast Delta Dental Stadium.
Yeah, if only we gave away runs, and we needed one on Monday, we needed one on Tuesday, and we needed one on Wednesday. Jesse, in the middle of a streak right now where the Fisher Cats have dropped 4 straight one-run games, and that's never a lot of fun. It leaves a manager scratching his head. What can we do a little bit differently? And the Fisher Cats have figured out ways to not win games, and that's a real concern right now.
On the other hand, and I know we're talking about the team effort, but just to single a guy out individually, it is good to see that Gabe Jacobo has gotten his baseball bat going.
Yeah, maybe just in time after just a miserable offensive start to the season. It was a guy who was hitting the ball hard, but he was hitting it at people, and the bat started to come around last weekend in Portland, and it carried through the week, and he'll actually come into play today as the first Fisher Cat all year to homer in back-to-back games. And finally, Gabe is now starting to contribute. And boy, if it could just, the contagiousness of the offense just needs to come through. It's been so much of a struggle.
I see transactions over the wire. The New Hampshire Fisher Cats might be needing some help. And I see that Matt Newman is coming up from Dunedin.
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about Matt, and certainly he'll take the place of Brad Glenn in our outfield, who was promoted on to AAA. I think a lot of people thought Brad Glenn was going to open the season at AAA after, spending the last couple of years in New Hampshire. And although he certainly has not had a great couple of weeks here for the Fisher Cats, he started the season very well, and I think we all know what he's capable of. And maybe now he's starting to rotate here into the thoughts for the Blue Jays for the future. So we'll root him well. And then, as you mentioned, Matt Newman on the scene here for the Fisher Cats, and he'll get an opportunity to play in this outfield now that already includes Michael Krause and Kenny Wilson.
Questions then in via Bluebird Banter, as we've partnered up with SB Nation this year, wondering simply about the catchers defensively. We can see the offensive numbers for, say, a Pierce Rankin or an A.J. Jimenez, but defensively, how have the catchers looked this year for New Hampshire?
All right. Well, let's see. First of all, we've had 5 different catchers already this season, too many. But A.J. Jimenez is the lead guy here, and he spent a little bit of time with a hamstring injury, and he is a tremendous defensive catcher. He's got a very strong, accurate throwing arm, and the numbers may not look great when you look at them. He's thrown out, let's say, 3 out of 12 so far this year. No concerns, no worries there at all. And then the other guys are more than serviceable arms, but nobody has played very much behind the plate. After A.J., Jack Murphy's already at AAA, and we haven't seen a whole lot of the other guys behind the plate. But AJ's the guy who leads the way.
We've seen those guys at the lower levels. Aaron Munoz is a defense-first player. Pierce Rankin has hit a little bit, but defense first. And it's something that I've seen with the Blue Jays throughout their organization, but especially with, for example, Sal Fasano making his way through the system, or Clayton McCullough, or there's a great amount of catchers and former catchers, minor league catching experience, major league catching experience, working with these guys. And it has always struck me as maybe you don't see that show up too much on the field, but if you sat down and spoke with the pitchers and spoke with the pitching coaches, we might see that there are some really good things going on. So let's turn our attention now to your pitchers, to the pitching staff as a whole. How is Jim Zykowski's group doing?
How about if I told you the first stat that has to jump off the page at you is a negative one, Jesse, and that is we have not had a starting pitcher win a game for the Fisher Cats since Casey Lawrence on April 27th.
It's remarkable.
All right, that's a long run here. Now, a couple of times we had Casey Jansen start games, so he didn't qualify for wins. But the starting pitchers are the guys who, either they've pitched well enough, like Deck McGuire in his game on Wednesday, and we didn't give him enough support, or the starting pitcher has struggled a little bit and has had to leave games early. Matt Boyd has had some rough outings since joining us here at AA. I think the guy that you have going tonight in Scott Copeland, and the Fisher Cats play Binghamton at 6:35, has been the guy. He's the one who's, along with Casey Lawrence, the two sinker ball pitchers have been getting deep into ball games, and two guys that you really don't have a whole lot to worry about. Deck McGuire's been consistently good, and so from that standpoint, it's starting pitching has been good, just not good enough, and the bullpen has been good enough, good but not good enough on a lot of occasions as well. And it's a club that's very close to being able to click, but for right now it hasn't. But individually, we certainly have seen some bright moments, in terms of the pitching staff, and it starts with the starters, and they quite haven't been good enough lately.
Is there anything we can pinpoint with Matt Boyd, who's so good with Dunedin, and now struggling such with New Hampshire? Is there anything that you can say, it's this hasn't been sharp, or maybe this hasn't quite been right yet for him?
Yeah, fastball command. That's the bottom line. The fastball's been too juicy, so he's been hit. And when he's tried to throw the secondary stuff, it hasn't been over the plate either, and guys are waiting on the fastball. So listen, the stuff is dynamic. You know how good Matt Boyd is, and he'll figure out AA hitters, I'm sure, with that kind of ability.
The other crazy thing to me has simply been how many home runs have been served up by the Fisher Cats. For example, the bullpen crew. It seems like the ball's leaving the park a lot.
Yeah, I guess I hadn't thought too much about that. We've had a few instances where relievers have come into the game and been greeted by home runs, which is never a lot of fun. But they're coming in, and the attitude is we're going to throw strikes. Not only have we had a lot of home runs off of our bullpen guy Jesse, but we've had a lot of walks too. So again, you can be good, but you can't be too good. And if you're not going to throw strikes and you're going to put guys on base, that's a problem as well. Maybe other teams know that we've had all these walks out of the bullpen, and the guys are going to look to throw strikes on that first pitch, and that's why we've given up some of the home runs.
Speaking with Bob Lipman of the New Hampshire Fisher Cats, maybe there are certain things. Set April, set these first couple of weeks of May aside, and the days get better from here. The interesting thing is, just looking at it from afar, Kenny Wilson was one of my favorite guys when he was here in Lansing. And then he just had his peculiar adventure where he was claimed by the Minnesota Twins, and now he's right back with the Blue Jays. How is his return?
Hasn't clicked yet. The average has been just about 200 for the entire year, not only playing for us, but playing a little bit there for the New Britain Rockcats, as you mentioned. Certainly a strange journey for Kenny Wilson, and a guy who just this season has just had a miserable start of it. But he's not alone, and there are a bunch of guys, I think, veteran kind of guys who you would have expected a little bit better out of the gate. And Kenny is certainly one, if you look at his career numbers, that you think that by the time all is said and done, he's going to be able to bump that average up quite a bit, which means he's got a lot of on-base still to come here. Hasn't taken away from his defense. He's still been very solid there. And, we'll look for him to turn around the offense here a little bit.
Our question of the week is with regard to umpires and peculiar circumstances. So, what is the most unusual event that you can recall involving an umpire?
The strangest one may have been when an umpiring crew missed that we had a makeup game scheduled, which is very rare, and this was even back a bunch of years ago on the road, and the whole conversation was, well, how we're going to play it together, and eventually I think we moved the start time of the game back about 90 minutes, and we got the umpiring crew to where they needed to be. It was one of those first games in a series, and they missed the memo. I guess other than that, I'll say this about the umpires at Double-A. They're young guys who are coming on and trying to get the job done and advance to the next level, just like everybody else. Unbelievably aware of the rules, and while you have your occasional missed calls, maybe the funniest situations happen when your manager kind of goes nuts and the umpire has to go out there and take it.
There was a situation
I will tell you
once.
This. We had a cute little incident the other day. We had 3 calls go against us on Monday night. Was it Monday night? The Ryan Schimpf took one over the foul pole. It looked like a home run. They called it foul. We had a ground ball to Andy Burns. Fielded it, stepped on third. Umpire said that he didn't step on the bag. And we had another one that was a line drive down the left field line that clearly should have been called a foul ball and resulted in an RBI double for Reading. The attendant downstairs at the gate who lets us in, a real nice guy here at Northeast Delta Dental Stadium, always has a little joke for the umpires. And this crew was coming in the next day, and he said, "You remember your glasses today, right?" And I happened to be standing there when they walked in, and the guy looked at him and he said, "Like, I've never heard that one before," and he was laughing. So it was pretty funny. But again, let's give credit to those guys because they have a brutally long season, and it's amazing how much they're a factor in our games. Thank goodness.
I have 2 quick umpiring stories. One, there was a young umpire in the Midwest League who he and I struck up a conversation over the course of the year. And in early April, I said, "How are things going?" And he answered not, "I'm doing great." He answered, "I can't find the right angle for this call at third base." And a couple of months later, I said, "Hey, how is life? How is everything?" And he said, "I found the angle." And that was it. He had worked so hard to figure out where he had to be to get the proper angle to get this tag. And it had taken him a couple of months, and now he was ready to go. And now he's one of the top rising prospect umpires. And then my other one, I'm riding the bus in independent ball, and our manager is on the phone with a good friend of his who's a manager elsewhere in the league. And it's been a fly ball hit to right with 1 out, runners at first and third, runner from third tags, scores, runner from first did not tag, just took off, so came back into first base, and they tagged the base to double him off, but after the runner from third had scored, and the umpire counted the run, and the manager, who was a friend of my skipper, blew his top, said that erases the run, started ranting and raving, called up my manager to commiserate after he'd been ejected. And I pulled out the rule book and I showed him, well, the umpires had it right. And my manager interrupted himself in the middle of saying, you're right. What were those umpires thinking? To say, actually, and the conversation tone changed just like that. And I could hear on the other side, oh, I guess I'll write him a letter. Umpires, hey, all of us, I will misspeak more in a broadcast than anyone airs over the course of a game in front of me.
Well said.
Bob Lipman, voice of the New Hampshire Fisher Cats, we wish you well this weekend. Until next week, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks a lot. And if you got an extra run or so, remember, we can use them in New Hampshire.
Hey, we'll set it on up. And it seems to me it should not be too many more months before you might see Dalton Pompeii. We'll see how things go.
Very good. Looking forward to it.
All right. Bob Lipman with the New Hampshire Fisher Cats. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler. This is Around the Nest. Jay talking our way to the Toronto Blue Jays organization. Now, right now in AAA, in case you're wondering about the Buffalo Bisons, well, the Bisons playing a doubleheader. And they're actually in progress right now. Gwinnett leading 2-0, and they're in the middle of the second inning. The Bisons are about to come to the plate. Ricky Romero is on the mound in that game. That immediately dates me in case you start listening to this podcast at another point. But since we are unable to have one of the Buffalo Bisons join us, I have a couple of interviews to share with you. First, Ben Wagner with Buffalo caught up with Darin Mastroianni a couple of weeks ago. We promised you the interview, and now we can play it. Here's Ben Wagner with Darin Mastroianni.
Countdown to Bisons baseball continues. We're back under the lights tonight in Scranton-Wilkes-Barre and back under the lights once again for the Buffalo Bisons. Second consecutive day in center field for Darin Mastroianni. First in your debut, that's an early go. 10:30 for you to make your Bisons debut and then all the travel to even get to this point.
That was tough. Yesterday was a tough kind of a grinder day. I mean, I got in at about 2 o'clock in the morning to the hotel here in Scranton, knowing we had, I think I got up at 7:30 to get ready to go to the field. So I wasn't on much sleep yesterday, but it's good to get out there and get going again.
Is it always good to knock out that first hit with a new club as well? And some of these guys I know you knew already from your travels in the IL.
Yeah, especially, the last couple of weeks I don't think I got a single hit. So it's kind of good to get that one out of the way and just kind of get rolling. I felt like I put some good swings to the ball yesterday. It felt good to just get out there and get more than one at bat. Just get playing again. It was a really good feeling, and it's exciting to be here and get a chance to play again.
Nice to see the sun, too. It looked like it was freezing cold in Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota was tough. It was cold. The weather wasn't real kind to us. In Rochester, the weather wasn't real kind to us. We had a couple of really nice days in Kansas City where I think we were all kind of shocked that we were coming off the field from BP sweating. It was kind of a weird feeling. So coming back out yesterday, real chilly, kind of stung a little bit, but, it's part of playing baseball in April.
Season for you started off really well in Rochester. That earned the promotion to Minnesota as well. Did you get as much playing time in the big leagues as you thought you were going to get, or just about, the role that you were projected to be part of, and that was what played out?
Yeah, it was a tough situation. I knew going up that it probably wasn't going to be for a long-term thing. Whenever you go up for someone who just had to get put on a DL, especially when it was two of our everyday guys, and Josh and Oswald, though. I didn't really know what was going to happen when I got up there. I just knew I was, back in the big leagues, and which was a big deal for me because it was a long year last year trying to recover from the surgeries, and it was, a good feeling to get back there and put that uniform on to, kind of get myself back to the big leagues. So playing wise, it was kind of what I expected in a way. They had some guys swinging the bat pretty good, so it was going to be hard to get into that lineup.
Darin Mastroianni is our guest here on Countdown to Bisons Baseball. His comments brought to you by Evans Bank. You mentioned the surgeries. You're bouncing back from severe ankle surgery. You wrecked it pretty good last year.
Yeah, it really screwed up my year. What we thought wasn't anything real major wound up being something fairly major. Whenever you got to get surgery on, and then the off season have to get it again. Especially when you're a speed guy, it really jammed your season up. Came into spring training. Felt better, but I think everyone knew I wasn't quite 100%. And by the time we left camp at the end of March, I really felt like I was back to full speed for the first time in over a year, and it was just a really, really good feeling to be able to go out there and run around every day and not question what I'm doing.
Anything extra that you have to do to make sure it's good, loose, and feeling as warm as possible, especially early in the year now?
No, we really haven't done anything. I don't ice it anymore. We tape it up. It's more of a comfort feeling. It's a trust thing at this point. I don't think it needs to be taped. But it's just I trust it even more than I do when it's not taped. So it's more precautionary. And I've sprained my ankles in the past, so let's not let it come up and turn first base and have a sprained ankle jump up on me there.
I don't want to dwell on the injury too much, but it's nice to get not only past the physical roadblock, but also the mental roadblock of it now that you do trust it.
Yeah, that was the biggest part. Last year when I did get called back up in September, I never trusted my ankle. I was always nervous about running, about cutting. I felt like every time I was turning the base, I was thinking about it, so I wasn't turning the base as well as I usually do. I was nervous about getting jumps and steals, so I wasn't trying to run as much because I just didn't trust it. And it's just nice to know that I can push all as hard as I want, I can cut, I can slip, and not have to think about it anymore.
Patrolling center field once again tonight, and we've seen you in the league. You look comfortable playing all three different positions. And with Buffalo, you may end up doing that because of guys like Anthony Gose and Kevin Pillar, who can play both corners and in center.
Yeah, I'm just, here to do what they tell me to do. I'm just happy to be on the baseball field again, and happy to come in and look at that lineup and see that I'm in there every day. They'll put me wherever they want, whatever their plan is, whatever Gary wants to do. That's not my call. I don't care one way or the other. As long as I'm in that lineup, I don't particularly care if it's left, center, or right. You know
much about Gary Allenson or anybody in the clubhouse?
Not really. I got a chance to talk to Richie for about 30 minutes the other day before a game when I was with Rochester. I liked him a lot. So far, report's pretty good. Very simple. I think we're going to mesh pretty good here. And other than that, it's kind of a new learning experience for me here.
Keeps it fresh though at the same time too.
It's a nice change of pace. Whenever you get to start over, and it's pretty good for me because I know so many guys here. It's almost like starting over, but kind of having some help to start over. There's so many guys in this clubhouse I either played with or against, whether it was with Toronto or Minnesota or actually, Austin Bivens-Dirks. I played for 3 years in winter ball with them. Oh, really? So a lot of guys in here I know I have a good rapport with, and it just really helps a lot when you're trying to transition to a new place.
I looked it up. You made your major league debut, not with Minnesota, where the most of your time is spent, but also in Toronto. The starting pitcher that day was Ricky Romero. Do you remember much about that game, or was your head way high in the clouds?
I remember a lot about it. I remember Billy Butler abused me in center field a couple of times. I remember having my first bat against Luke Hochaver and swung at the first pitch and flew out to right, and then he struck me out on 3 pitches. And then most nerves I was having a bunt late in the game with JP at first on that turf and a sidearm righty. So I remember a lot. I remember being really, really nervous about Ricky pitching because it was Ricky Romero, and I knew at the time he was our ace, and so. It was a really cool experience. And then to make my debut with the Twins, I actually played against the Blue Jays, so that was pretty kind of cool in the same right too.
Well, best of luck returning to Rogers Center and getting Hochaver once again, maybe in your future as well.
Thanks, guys.
All right, best of luck to Darin Mastroianni, our guest on Countdown to Bison's Baseball. The comments brought to you by Evans Bank. We're back with a pregame show and the look at the
looking at things right there. That's Ben Wagner sent over a pregame interview he had with Darin Mastroianni with the Buffalo Bisons to give us some AAA representation. Well, there's an interview with the player up the ladder for the Toronto Blue Jays, and now, we go all the way down in Single-A Lansing. The Lansing Lugnuts have a reliever named Adaric Kelly. Now, Adaric is out of Aruba and moved when he was a teenager to Florida, and there he was drafted by the Blue Jays. And currently, he's a member of the Lugnuts pen, and he's noted for his wicked change of pace. I had the chance to catch up with Adaric not too long ago.
This is Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, joined by the Lansing Lugnuts pitcher Adaric Kelly. Adaric, where were you when you found out you had been drafted by the Blue Jays?
I just got back to the hotel. I went to get pizza with one of my friends, and I got back to the hotel, and I got the call, so I was very excited about that.
Who called you?
John Snyder, which is the Vancouver manager.
Yeah. So you've been drafted. Who's the first person in your life that you tell?
I was with my parents, and they were actually looking at the computer to see if I got drafted, so they actually told me.
Were you expecting to get drafted by the Blue Jays?
No, I didn't know who I would get drafted by. I was expecting to get drafted, even though I told most of the MLB teams that I was going to go to school. So I was expected to be drafted, but not very high, so it was welcome.
So you're expecting to go to school. Was that a tough decision, school or join the Blue Jays organization?
It really was, because I came to the U.S. actually to go to college, because I used to watch the College World Series on TV, and I loved the environment, so I had college in mind all along. So at the last moment I changed my mind, but I'm glad I did.
Well, so here you are, you're a professional baseball player. What was your very first season like?
It was tough, because I had to fight back after injury in my first season, so it was a tough learning experience, but that's who made me into who I am right now, so it helped me. It was probably my most important season, my hardest, but most important up to now.
What was your injury?
Just on top of my elbow. It was just a minor injury, but it just kept stalling, so it didn't want to heal. it wasn't anything major though.
Let's go back to another injury, your sprained ankle in high school that you pitched right through. Tell me this story. How did you get injured and what happened next?
It was, I believe, the second or third before last game of the season. I hit a ground ball to the infield somewhere, and I stepped on the bag wrong because it was wet and the bag was very high. I stepped wrong on it, so I twisted my ankle, and it was a high ankle sprain. So the doctor told me I was so close to breaking it, and it was like 3 weeks after that I wasn't doing any baseball activities because I could barely walk, and my coach was like, we got a game, I believe it was a Thursday, we got a game, regional final Thursday, you want to pitch? I said, I would love to. And I believe the day before I went on a mound to see if I could throw, and I was like throwing like an 85%. He was like, yeah, you can definitely pitch, and I didn't have much on the ball, but he still wanted me to pitch because I was his ace, you know. If he was gonna lose, he was gonna go with the best he had, you know. So I said I could definitely pitch, and I pitched 7 innings. I believe I gave 2 runs, and we won the game. We went to the state tournament. Then I pitched 7 innings scoreless. We won the state semifinal. So 14 innings.
It captured a lot of folks' attention. And after that season, you were named the Player of the Year for that whole area in Florida. What an honor!
It was a big honor because down there is a lot of baseball. So it's one of the best counties in Florida, Palm Beach County. So I was excited. I was very happy about that. I got the call with my family. They were visiting, so it couldn't have been any better.
Speaking with Aderick Kelly, originally from Aruba, moving in high school to Florida. First, tell me, since I've never been, what is Aruba like?
It is amazing. I would definitely recommend it to anyone who asks me. It's an island. It's very breezy. The sun all year. It's around 80 to 85 all year round. So I would definitely recommend it. I would like anyone in the world to see it for themselves.
What was the biggest change in your life, Aruba to Florida?
I mean, winter, just the cold. My first game I pitched in high school was in like 45 degrees, which over here in Michigan is not too cold, but for Florida it's very cold. There was smoke coming out of my mouth. So for me, it was like something out of this world. So just getting used to the cold mainly. That's basically the only difference, because in summer, Florida is normal, you know. So.
How do you spend your off season from baseball? October, November, December, January? What do you do?
I actually, from October to December, the end of December, I play in a Christmas group, which is a big thing over there. I'm a musician too, so I come from a music and sports family. So my brother's a big time musician there. So I spend the first part of my off season playing music and just practicing, keeping in shape. And then the second part, I'm working out from January up to March, spring training. I'm working out and playing, and I practice with all the professionals from Aruba. So
let me go back to music. Do you sing?
No. I play percussion, and I can play a little bit of piano. I'm learning guitars now. So
older or younger brother that you play with?
Older.
What does he play?
He plays a lot of stuff. He's a percussionist, so he plays the drums. He plays pretty much everything that has to do with percussion, and he's playing the piano too a lot.
So music runs more in your family than sports?
I would say a bigger part of my family, but when it comes to my close family, so my dad and my brother, they were big time sports. But now my brother doesn't play baseball anymore, so now music is number one. But the rest of my family, music is big.
What did your dad play?
He played shortstop. He was a good athlete, but back then there wasn't many scouts in Aruba, so he didn't get a chance to get signed. But he was very good.
And finally, Aruba, because of the Dutch, its connection, the connection to the World Baseball Classic, being able to play for Team Netherlands in the WBC, and you've had the experience of practicing with that team, knowing that team. Tell me about that experience.
It was awesome because the manager of it was Hansel Mullins, which is the San Francisco Giants hitting coach, the big league hitting coach. So it was just an experience to get to know them and get to know the players and have like a sense of motivation towards my practice after that. So it was a big time learning process for me.
Aderick, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Lugnuts pitcher Aderick Kelly. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, and this is Lansing Lugnuts Baseball on Big Country 92.1.
We can end things right there. You can hear with both Buffalo and with Lansing. That's part of our pregame shows or wherever we might play them. With the Lugnuts, for example, we love popping in the interviews with the players in the midst of long rain delays. I am Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, and this is Around the Nest. Thank you very much for your company. We are joined this week by Tyler Murray in Dunedin, by Trey Wilson in Lansing, and by Bob Lipman in New Hampshire. And we thank very much Bluebird Banter. And we invite you to send in your questions, post your comments. We love to hear from you. You can use the hashtag AroundTheNest. And meanwhile, we love using the website aroundthenest.mlblogs.com. Lansing Lugnuts are about to start off play against those Dayton Dragons tonight, and so I've got to be on air in just a moment with Tom Robson on the mound. But all of these Around the Nest are podcasted. You can also check in on iTunes. We thank you very much for listening. We hope that you enjoyed finding out more about Aderick Kelly and Darin Mastroianni. Until next week, we've been Jay Talking Around the System. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, and enjoy the baseball.